Alright guys, in this episode I'm going to create some more rhythmic elements. Essentially I'm going to create a few loops, things that I can pull in that have a pattern or a sequence to them. I'm going to create some that are both percussion oriented as well as some that are more melodic, like arpeggiations. And let's jump in and see what we can create. Boom! Here we are again in Energy XT. I'm going to start from scratch once again. And the first thing that I want to create is maybe just some kind of moving percussion loop. And for that, I'm going to go to my VST plugins into my instruments folder, and I'm going to use the HCX. This is from Marvin Powlin's VST modules, the HCX. This is a hi-hat synthesizer, so it's actually synthesizing the sound, not using samples, but it is dedicated to just creating basically like white noise that you can shape and kind of tweak. So we can adjust the decay. I'm gonna maybe start with a preset that's close to what I'm looking for. Okay, so I only have 3 notes. I have essentially a closed hi-hat, a pedal hi-hat, and an open hi-hat. The open hi-hat I want to decay a little bit longer, almost more like a cymbal. And then of course I'm going to add some effects to this as well. Let's get a pattern in here. Let's create a pattern first, and again I'm going to use a loop that is 4 measures, and I'm going to just start putting in some notes and try to get some randomness going on here. What I'm going to do is start with 1 measure, and then I'll hold Control and copy that, and then select all of it and copy it again. And now what I'm going to do is go through and just start moving around, adding and taking away a few different beats to give it some randomness throughout this loop. Okay, and I'm going to add a distortion. I'll add the Ruby tube again because it's one of my favorites. I'm also going to run this through a guitar amp simulation, so I'll use the multi-effects that are built into Energy XT and choose the guitar amp. And I think also, just to emphasize the attack of these notes, I'm going to use Audio Assault's The Punch, which is a nice compressor here. Very simple. And that's it. So I'll just select that part and render my selected part only. I don't need it to be stereo, so I'll change it to mono. 16-bit wave is fine, and save this to the desktop. Before I get into editing the waveform itself or putting it into folders or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and just, while I'm still in this project, continue creating some more loops. The next thing I want to create is kind of an arpeggiated loop, something that has a tone to it. And for that, I'm going to use, let's use Futura. This is another free VST plugin, and it has some really, really good sort of dance music oriented. This is a Hoover presets. Lots of presets in here. I'm going to grab something that is a bit more chimey, and there's some bells. I kind of like that one. It's got an interesting tone to it. I don't need it to be a bass because I'm going to create a bass out of some of the samples that I've already created previously. And again, I'm going to keep it sort of in the key of D that I've been working in. So for now, I'm just going to delete the HCX out of the project, double click to create a clip, and then I'm working in the key of D. So in Energy XT, I can go up here to options and show note names. And what that'll do is on the MIDI note itself, it'll show me the note name. So I can get there's D3 right there. I can also turn off the auto scroll, which I prefer. And much like we just did the hi-hat loop, I'm just going to kind of just create some randomness, a little bit of chaos, and work with a few different octaves to create an arpeggiated pattern. I'm going to start with one measure, duplicate it out, and then make changes. You can also double click on the clip and open it up in its own window, so you have a nice big window to edit your MIDI in. I could play this in as well, but for this kind of stuff, I just find it easier to point and click. All right, so there's 4 measures. Now we need to make some changes here. So I'm going to grab some of these, open up my object bar panel right here, and then I can adjust some of these. I'm transposing some of these notes by octaves. So it does have a pattern, but each measure in this 4-measure loop is different. So it will only repeat every 4 measures. Energy XT also, for any MIDI track, has an arpeggiator built in. You can just engage it and have it run, and you can get a lot of different variety out of this. So what I did is I turned on the hold so that essentially every note that I have in here is going to be held down, and I'm using the built-in arpeggiator to re-trigger all of these notes that I've already done. So I created an arpeggiation pattern, and now I'm using the arpeggiator that's built in to, again, sort of provide some more randomness to that. And it even has a random function right in built into the arpeggiator. So I've turned that up to 60. I've turned on triplets, and then I have my shuffle at 20%. With it on hold, it will continue playing even after I stop the playhead. To stop it, I can just turn off the arpeggiator. Let's now focus on the actual tone, the sound of this. And I'm, of course, going to process this a little bit. I want to maybe put on a bit crusher. But what I can do is give it a certain percentage of this sound. And I'm going to try 50%. Also use Ruby Tube very subtly. And then maybe try a chorus. I'm going to use Tau chorus to give it a little bit more movement on the left and right channels. All right, let's turn our arpeggiator back on and hear what we have. I might try one more trick with this because it's very random and almost chaotic. And to kind of keep that, but also sort of tame it down, because I know I'm going to be mixing this with a lot of other elements, I'm going to do something that I do quite a bit of, and that's use Tau Filter 2 as sort of a pumping effect that will work in time with the track's tempo. And I'm going to use it as a volume shaper. Essentially what this does is it works as I get the same kind of results that you would get from like a sidechain compressor. And so I'm going to put this on. So I put this on 16th notes and added this modulation curve. So this is a tempo synced modulated filter, and I'm using it just as a volume envelope. So I still have some of that randomness in there, but it sort of pumps in on the off beats. And that's kind of weird, but it's a little bit more tame than it was before. So I'm going to render this as audio now. I'm going to make this stereo because I have a phaser, which means there's different information on the left and right speakers. The cool thing about this to me is when I pull it back in, I can use the CPU in my computer to do other tasks. This whole process of sort of creating pieces, rendering them as audio, and then bringing that audio back into a fresh, clean project that allows me this sort of creative digestion. And it's like designing the tools that I'm going to use to create a piece of music. So once again, I'm going to open up the WAV files in Ocean Audio so that I can get a good look at them. I can maximize them if they need it. Right, so I'll just do my normalization on this. And I'm normalizing it at 90%, so I do get quite a bit of increased volume, and I make sure that I don't ever clip, and you can see the change in the waveform there. We can just repeat that by pressing Control Y, or under Effects, it's our first option, Repeat Normalize. We'll save this, drop it into our folder. We'll create a new project in Energy XT just so we can pull in these samples into a fresh project. Here's our ARP Pump 01 is what I called it. So now we have the audio file with all of those effects built in. And here's our hi-hat loop with that. Most likely I wouldn't use it this way. I wouldn't use these two together just like this. I'm going to chop them up, reverse them, stretch them out, do all kinds of different things with them. For example, I can take this hi-hat loop now, chop it in half, and then right up here on my resample mode, I can choose repitch. And what that's going to do is, well, when I stretch this out now, you can see it stretches it by repitching it. So the pitch of that hi-hat's going to go much, much lower. Here's what it was before. And I've chopped it in half and then stretched it to be double the length by pitching it down. Let's hear those two together. I can also quickly put this in reverse and just for fun see what that sounds like. Right up here in the direction in the object bar, I can say, you know what, run in reverse. If I want to get really weird and glitchy, I could half this again and stretch it out. And this is going to be really, really pitching down that hi-hat. It's not even going to sound like a hi-hat anymore, and it's in reverse. Here's what it sounds like. I just put in the built-in guitar amp and put it on the dirty channel. Makes it sound much more like a guitar. reminds me of something like from the 80s, sort of action movies. So we used Energy XT to generate some sounds, starting with a hi-hat and then also doing this kind of digital arpeggiation part. Rendered those as loops that we could bring back in. We also have them archived so we can use them not just for this project, whatever this turns out to be, but for other things as well in the future. I really like this idea of sort of recycling and resampling myself, things that I've created, and then dissect them and rearrange them in different ways. It's a great exercise, especially for coming up with interesting and unique sounds, not something that's just, oh, that sounds like a sample pack or a specific virtual instrument that you may have heard before. Give it a try. And thank you for watching. Look for more to come. Bye for now.